Hey folks, my name is Jen, and today I'm gonna do a wrap up of everything that I read in August. So full disclosure, it is actually not quite the end of August yet, but I just know between today and tomorrow there's no way in hell I'm going to finish another book, so we might as well just do this. So in August I read 7 books. I did also make progress in a couple of other books. So as far as the TBR goes, I mostly kind of stuck to the TBR. I did not end up picking up The Road to Paradise Island at all. So we'll come back to that one at some point. But I did start Caramello. I am very slowly making my way through this just because I decided to annotate this, so it's just taking me, a little bit longer than I normally would to read this. I do plan on continuing my read of this and will hopefully finish it maybe next month. We'll see. And I also ended up DNFing officially, let me see. How many books? Was it 3 books? Decided to officially give up on The Long Fall and Dead Girls, both just because I tried again and it's a similar issue for both of them, mostly with the writing style, but with The Long Fall I don't really like the main character, and then with Dead Girls the details that were there didn't feel like they were enough, and it's just, I don't know. So I ended up officially giving up on both of those, and then I also ended up DNFing one of those young adult or childhood books that I wanted to get to, Kiss Me Kill Me. I got partway through and just realized that I didn't give a shit, so I DNF'd, and I have put that in the unhaul pile as well. Well, let's talk about the books that I did officially finish reading in August. The first book I read was The Year of Secret Assignments by Jacqueline Moriarty. This is actually a reread. This is a book that I really liked back in high school, so I decided to give it a reread to see if it's something that I feel like has merit enough for me to keep it, or if it's something that I need to say goodbye to. This is following 3 friends. They are, what were the names again? Cassie, Lydia, and Emily, and they go to this very posh, private school in Australia, and their English teacher has this program where he has students from their posh school, I think it's Ashbury School, and they have to have pen pals with the local public school, Brookfield, and everyone at Ashland, I keep wanting to call it Ashland, it's Ashbury. They always have bad things to say about the Brookfield kids, that they're have all gone to jail, or they're all into drugs or something like that, but it's a public school. And so these 3 friends, basically it follows them and their pen pal correspondences with the 3 boys that they get in touch with through the pen pal program between their 2 schools. And this is told through letters, diary entries, etc. So I am a sucker for this kind of media. I like it when books are told through journal entries or through different media like letters and stuff like that. It's something that I really enjoy. So I really liked that aspect of this a lot. I thought for the most part this was a really funny book. It was a good glimpse at the differences between the students at both schools and their interactions their initial one's not always getting off to a good start, but then later on their interactions kind of improving and the growth of the characters over the novel. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the friendship and romancy bits that sprung up. I thought overall that was very cute. So I didn't really like how a couple of the boys were like very sexual harassing in their correspondences in the beginning. That wasn't particularly great. But I thought that the characters kind of overall improved over the course of the book, and I really, really liked seeing the friendship between these three girls. I think that was like the star of the show, was basically just seeing their friendship and the dynamics between them and everything, and I really enjoyed that. I thought that was pretty cool. So overall, yeah, I like this. It's going to stay on my shelves, and I gave this 4 stars. Next up, I read With a Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. So this is following Imani. It is her senior year in high school, and she is kind of trying to figure out the balance between, you know, being a good student at her high school and making enough money at her part-time job to help support her, I think she's like 3 years old, her 3-year-old daughter and her grandmother, and kind of help them out. And she finds herself trying to be like responsible, even though she still is holding on to this dream that she had growing up, which was to become a chef. And when a culinary arts program opens up at her school, she has to kind of decide if it's worth it to try to chase her dream or if she should just play it safe. So this is the first prose novel that I've read of Elizabeth Acevedo's, I think. This is her only prose novel right now, but don't quote me on that because I could be wrong. But I did really enjoy it. I do have to admit, I didn't enjoy it as much as her books in verse, but still really enjoyed this. Really enjoyed getting to hear Imani's story. I really loved the culinary aspects of this. Like, the discussions and descriptions of food made me hungry. It sounded really good. There's like a couple of recipes that are in here too, and I really enjoyed seeing those and seeing like Imani's like creative side. And I thought like all of the food sections were just beautifully done. So I am not Black or Puerto Rican, and I wasn't like a teen mom, so I can't like speak to the exact accuracy of it, but it does seem that like Elizabeth Acevedo did a lot of like research, and that the story was written with a lot of empathy and truth, and just, I mean, I just like the fact that it is a novel about a teen mom, and it isn't like, you know, how I think most of us, unless you personally know someone who was a teen parent, like, I think most of us who haven't been in or been around someone in that situation, our exposure to that was like 16 and pregnant or something. So I liked being able to see a different like representation of that. I thought it was very important. At times I definitely wanted to shake Imani for some of like her decisions that she made, or like her stubbornness overall, but like I really enjoyed seeing her growth over the course of the novel as well. And I just really enjoyed this, and it basically solidified for me why Elizabeth Acevedo has quickly become like one of my favorite authors. She just writes so fucking well. I ended up giving this 5 stars. And the next book I read was The Poisoners Handbook by Deborah Bloom. This is Murder and the Birth of Forensic Medicine in Jazz Age New York. So this basically covers the careers, basically, up to freaking forensic medicine rock stars from like 1918 through to like think it was the 30s, getting into like, yeah, 30s, 40s. And those are Charles Norris, the chief medical examiner who was appointed after the like corrupt people were thrown out in New York City, and the toxicologist Alexander Gatler, who he put in place like upon his appointment. These two frickin' badasses. I, as you can see, annotated this book because I got it partially for pleasure because I heard about this on Vintage Homicide podcast and definitely wanted to read it, but also like I needed to get like some context for my work in progress, and I just, you can tell I enjoyed the hell out of this book. This was so informative, well-researched. There are so many cases that are talked about in this book. It is split up into different sections, basically all of the poisons. So we go through like chloroform, wood alcohol, cyanides, arsenic, mercury, carbon monoxide, methyl alcohol, radium, ethyl alcohol, more carbon monoxide, thallium. Like it just goes through each of these sections. Each of these sections is like devoted to a poison that was their enemy, essentially, in different various cases that they had to deal with. It was really fun to look at all of these. I heard about a lot of cases that I'd never heard of before. I heard about several famous cases that I had read about or heard about on other podcasts and like books that were mentioned. Like, I really enjoyed that. I got so much information from this. It's insane. I have a lot of other things in here that I've marked, future things that I also need to research further because they're fascinating. I just really loved this. The historical context was just so on point and very much appreciated. At times, honestly, and this was something that I saw a couple of complaints of other reviews of this book, was that, you know, at times it felt a little info dumpy, but I kind of appreciated the amount of historical like background that was given because it helped place it in this specific setting and giving like just great background information on what was going on in the country at the time, what was happening in New York City, what were they dealing with. And I really liked that it was set against like Prohibition too, because like I knew bits and pieces about Prohibition, but it's not something that I can ever remember really any of my like history classes spending a lot of time on. So it was really cool to get like even more information on Prohibition and like how much it sucked and just kind of overwhelmed the medical examiner's office like crazy. I really like that. I think this gave it like just set it firmly in the time period and was just really great background information. This really also made science palatable and fun and like extremely easy to understand. I have probably said this before a bunch, but I am not someone who is really good at science. I'm not someone who's really interested in science overall. So to be able to read something that definitely is talking about chemicals a lot, and chemistry is not something I've ever really been good at, but definitely talks about that a lot, but breaks it down so you can just totally understand what the hell they're talking about. Love it. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah Bloom. You're a fucking goddess. I do have to say, this is not a mealtime read. If you, like me, tend to read during your lunch break, at work, at home, whatever, don't read this at lunchtime. This talks about, because it is about death, it talks about mortuary stuff a lot. It talks about the processes of like tissues and things and how they extracted them to get like to do other things. There's a lot of mashing going on in here. So it's, you know, if that's something that's going to set you off a little bit, I would suggest just picking up something else and not reading this while you eat your leftover spaghetti or whatever, because you're not going to have a good time. And it also says it has a couple of executions in pretty clear detail. So also, you know, if some of these things are particularly upsetting for you, go into this with an air of caution, basically. But overall, I absolutely love this. This is honestly going to be, like, so far one of the best books that I have read this year. And I can't remember the last time I've said that about a piece of nonfiction. But this is, honestly, loved it. Right up there with Count of Monte Cristo for me right now is like favorites of the year. And I just absolutely adored this. And like I said, Norris and Gettler, fucking badasses. I kind of have a little bit of a crush on both of them. They're amazing. They're awesome. I gave this 5 stars. The next book I read was The House in Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This is following caseworker for the department in charge of magical youth. So this is a world in which there's a lot of magical creatures and magical people, and they're being regulated and registered by the government. This is definitely in like England, or if it's not in England, it's like English sort of related world. Anyway, Linus is a caseworker for the department. Sorry, it's so long I can never remember it. Department in charge of magical youth, and basically his job is to go around to various orphanages where the magical youth have been sent or abandoned, basically. And his job is to go there and be like this impartial judge and investigate the orphanage and make sure that everyone's safe, it's all good, everything's by the book, like this gigantic manual basically that they have. So that's basically his job, his life. His life's kind of unsatisfactory. He has this little house thing with this incredibly annoying neighbor, and he has a cat named Calliope, which is a pretty good name for a cat, actually. So one day he is mysteriously recruited by extremely upper level management in the department to go out to travel out to this island, the house in which the House in the Cerulean Sea sits, and he is to investigate the orphanage and the caretaker, Arthur Panassus, who is a little bit odd and also houses like 6 of the most dangerous magical youth there is, basically. So Linus gets out there with all of his ideas about like rules and regulations, and basically has like an entire month to observe everyone, and over time he grows closer to not only all of these children but also their caretaker, Arthur. So overall, I thought this was pretty cute and charming. I grew to like all of the characters. I was not really a fan of Linus initially, and it took me till about, I'd say, maybe halfway through the book for me to actually be like, alright, he's not a total horse's ass. I do have to say, so there's like a romance in here, and I didn't fully believe it at first. Actually, I was pretty suspicious of it for a while just because of how Arthur Parnassus is, and fully admitted that he, within the book, that he would do anything and everything within his power to keep those children safe and with him and like totally protected, like he would do literally anything. So I was just a little bit suspicious that Arthur was just trying to manipulate Linus in order to make sure that the orphanage stays open and that the kids stay with him and are safe and everything. But after a couple of things happened, I was like, okay, so maybe this is for real. It's not like suspicious. I'm just being a cynical asshole. So here we are. Ultimately, though, I did find that aspect to be rather cute eventually throughout the book. I really liked the kids too. I think each of them was interesting and quirky. I think Theodore is my favorite, I do have to say. Lucy's pretty great too, but Lucy honestly scares me a little. I think Theodore is definitely my favorite of all of the kids. But I did like all of them. I think they're a quirky, dysfunctional bunch. And they're a family. I like found family stories, so that's also an aspect of this that I very much enjoyed. I do have to say the writing style was really jarring at times. Like, sometimes, I don't know, TJ Klune would move between really, like, pretty descriptive, almost metaphorical sentences and descriptions and things, and then all of a sudden it would just be like chock full of like short sentences or weirdly worded phrasing used by different characters, and it was just, I don't really know if I particularly liked it, like the writing style overall. I'd be really into it and then it would change up slightly and it would just be a little bit jarring to me. I don't know if it's just this book or if that's how TJ Klune writes. Normally, I haven't read any of his other things, so I can't be sure, but yeah. Yeah, though overall, I did really enjoy this, except for like the jarring bits, and I gave this 4 stars. Then, I read Empty Smiles by Katherine Arden. So, this is the 4th and final book in the Small Spaces Quartet by Katherine Arden, as I said. So this is following Ollie and her friends in the aftermath of the events of the 3rd book, Dark Waters. This is following, each book is set within a season. Small Spaces was in fall, Dead Voices was in winter, Dark Waters was in spring, and this is in the summer. This has to do with a creepy carnival, and of course, terrifying clowns. This is the most terrifying cover of the books, and in my opinion, one of the most terrifying covers ever. Like, why do we have an it motherfucker right here? Why? So things that I did like about this book. I really liked the change in point of view. I did like how it switched between the different point of views. Yeah, that was something I really liked because I like all of the characters, all the main characters, so I enjoyed that we got to like switch between them a bit. I felt like doing that, we saw more of the characters, which is what I've been wanting, basically, is to get a little bit more of each of them, because they're like really cool kids. I do like that Katherine Arden really kind of went into, you know, the toll, basically, that being afraid for almost an entire year would have on anyone, let alone a bunch of like 12-year-olds. Like, because oftentimes I think in horror series and stuff like that, it almost seems like in the moment kids are scared, but then, you know, the characters just like it just rolls off their back, it's whatever. But this was clearly like, no, this is how actual kids would be, like, of several months of like looking behind them all the time, expecting like the bad guy to just pop out of nowhere, you know, it. So I enjoyed that like more realistic aspect of this too. Like, no, they're not gonna just like be whatever. They're gonna be like, oh my god, what's gonna happen next? This, I think this was the scariest out of the bunch, and I have to say there are aspects from each of the other books, just certain horror trope things from each that have really freaked me out. And, well, not Dark Waters so much, more so with the first two books, but I clowns were never really a problem for me growing up. It didn't really bother me that much until a few years ago when I went to see the It reboot, part 1, and now I have a problem with clowns. So that's fun. There is, if you've read this book, there is a particular scene that happens, like, all along I was kind of unsettled by the whole thing, but this particular scene, just something about it, I don't know what it was, but something about it, I got so scared tears actually came to my eyes, and that's something, because that doesn't really happen for me when I read books. Even when I read like Stephen King, I read horror books, it's not something that really happens. So for that to happen, that was, you know, or I'm just a big coward. That's also a thing, yeah. But I mean, I like like a little thrill in like books. I mean, I like ghost stories and shit like that. So I mean, I liked it. It spooked the hell out of me, but I was really glad that I read it during daylight and I didn't wait until bedtime, because no. I do have to say, I think my only problem with this book, like everything else about it, was just great. My only problem is the ending. Not so much the ending, like the way it ended, like the actual ending, I was fine with. Like that, it's fine. It was just the way it was handled, it felt extremely rushed. I don't know what happened with Catherine Arden, if she was like trying to meet her deadline, if there was like just, I don't know. She lost inspiration and just had to rush through. I don't know what happened, but like the climax just felt lackluster because everything was so rushed. Like we just rushed, went right through everything like that, and I felt like there wasn't enough conflict. I felt like that it wasn't like, we got some answers, but we didn't get all the answers, and it just, I don't know. It was a good ending, but it was just way too rushed, and ultimately that's what made it feel very unsatisfying. And that ending is honestly what keeps this from being a solid, like, 5-star read. I ended up giving this 4 stars, and unfortunately I think the ending's probably gonna keep this from being like my ultimate, like, on my like ultimate favorite series list. Honestly, this ending will probably keep it from getting on that list, just because, I don't know, it didn't feel like it was as strong as the beginning, if that makes sense, which was a little bit disappointing. Alright, the next book I read was another one of my young adult childhood rereads. This is My Own Worst Enemy by Carol Sonnenklar. So this is following Eve. Eve is going into, I think, 8th grade, partway through the year. Her dad lost his job, and her mom ended up going back to work, and they've had to move the whole family, and so she's starting in a new school. So her family her parents have asked her to kind of step up and help more around the house. And the biggest way that she can help is to act like a normal old girl. And so she has decided to basically change up her look. Instead of just wearing her usual comfortable worn clothes, she's going to try to dress like a normal girl and make an effort and make normal friends or just whatever, because she hasn't had so much luck with friends because of her mouth droppings, which are basically just her being blunt and funny. But when she does manage to make some like normal girlfriends at school, she has to wonder if she might be losing herself just a bit in. I overall thought this was a really good message to be had in here, basically about like being true to yourself and what even is normal. Like, I think we got some very good examples of people who might not look or even act normal sometimes, but who are very kind and accepting. And on the other side, we have people who are normal, and adults think that, oh, they're the sweetest kids ever. In reality, they're really stuck up, or they have really judgmental families, or it's just like they're the proper people to hang out with, but like, what fun is it to hang out with them when you're just being judged all the time? You have to do everything that the Queen Bee says. Go fuck that shit. There were some views in here, I have to say they were a bit outdated. This was published in 1999, and I mean, I was a kid in 1999, and I guess maybe I just wasn't paying that much attention, or it's been so long that I forgot. But yeah, there's this one section where they're just really on about traditional gender roles, and like, they're offended. People are like offended that a dad would be a house husband, and like the mom is not staying at home taking care of the kids but has her own job. Like, that's offensive to them. And like, her dad is supposed to be helping take care of the house, but instead he seems to be relegating the cooking and the cleaning basically to Eve, and he doesn't give a shit. He's doing the manly things, which is like DIY projects around the house and stupid shit like that. And it's like, that stuff was really maddening and made me feel a little happy about how far we've come a bit. It's not far, really. It's really not far, but it's far enough where most likely you're not going to hear another adult say, oh, you have a job instead of staying home with your children? What kind of a mother are you? Shit like that. Does anyone still say shit like that? So I'm not like a mom yet, so I don't know this, but I haven't heard someone say seriously shit like that in years. So I'm hoping that's still not a thing. If it is, like, go tell that person to kick fucking rocks, man. So, yeah, so there's, like, some outdated views and stuff in here, which made me have some feelings, clearly. But, yeah, I thought overall the message of, like, trying to be true to yourself is really good, and I really liked that, you know, the character, I loved her snark. Like, she's a bit snarky, and I loved her snark, and I loved her sense of humor, and I loved her little venting journal entries, and I don't know, I feel like if she had been a kid in my class in junior high, I would have gotten along with her, because I like people who, I would rather someone, you know, speak their mind in a funny way than just be, like, fake to my face all the time, like is her little clique that she hangs out with for a while in here. I don't know if it's something that I will ever read again, but it's definitely something that I'll keep around for when I have kids and they get old enough to read this, and we'll just have a good discussion about, like, you know, things that people don't do anymore and stuff like that. I don't know, whatever. So this is, yeah, I give this 4 stars. So I ended up reading Amulet by Kazu Kibuishi. This is the first volume, The Stonekeeper. So this is following Emily and Naveen after it's a couple of years after a family tragedy. Them and their mother move into an ancestral home, which is really creepy, in order to start fresh, but unfortunately one night they hear a weird noise and this terrifying creature ends up kidnapping their mom, and they go through this like portal into another world to try to find their mom and understand what is happening. I thought, first of all, the art is superb. Absolutely gorgeous. The facial expressions on here, subtle, perfection, loved it. It was a good time. Faces full of emotion, great. The creepy factor in here, big creepy factor. I do have to say that there are some creatures in here that they're basically like giant spiders but with tentacles instead. And it's saying something about this book, of how good and intriguing the story is and how beautiful the artwork is that I am willing to continue with the series. In fact, I may have bought the next couple of volumes in the series because I have a problem. Yeah, it's saying a lot that I am continuing on with this, despite the fact that there are terrifying spider-like creatures in here. So, it's worth it. Yeah, this is like deliciously creepy. There's some feelings in here. It is beautifully, beautifully done. A lot is going on. I'm very intrigued, very interested to know and to see where this is going, what is happening with like characters that have been introduced. There's a magic amulet. It's great. It's great. I really love this. I also really love the robotic like stuffed rabbit. He's great. His name's Misket. He's hilarious. Loved this, and like I said, I'm gonna continue on with the series that I shouldn't have bought right now during a book ban, but I did it anyway. I gave this 4 stars. So yeah, this is everything that I read. Thank you so much for watching. My battery is gonna die. I will catch you in the next video, guys.